I love to be in this supportive role for the docs, partnering with them, for the CAs, partnering with them. What do you need from me this week? How can I train you and help you to feel more comfortable in your role and empower you?
All right, chiropractors and chiropractic students, welcome to the Family Practice Podcast. You know, the one you've been waiting way too long for, because this podcast will actually stay focused on chiropractic. Not only what it takes to get world-class clinical results for kids and families in your community, but also what it takes to build a legendary, incredible family practice that takes care of your family way beyond your dreams. I'm Dr. Tony Ebel, and I'll be joined by Dr. Matt Hill, Dr. Ellie Wright, Jacqui Jakubowicz, and incredible guests, chiros, associates, CAs, all these folks making massive impact around the world. We're going to cover everything: pediatric, perinatal, family practice. This is the podcast you've been waiting for, because moms and dads and families have always needed us. Now they're finally ready for us. I hope you're ready for the Family Practice Podcast. Let's go.
Welcome to the Family Practice Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jacqui Jakubowicz, and so excited to be here with you today with our special guest. We are very excited for this very exciting episode. We are hosting none other than Sadie Smith from Living Water Chiropractic, and she is our inaugural CA interview. And when I say CA, I mean care advocate interview here on the podcast. And we're delighted to kick this off with her. I believe that she is going to bring very special value, a unique perspective, and just really bring her light, bright countenance to you here today. And so we're really excited to have you. Thank you for sharing your time with us and your experience and excellence with us, Sadie. We appreciate you joining us today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's my pleasure. So I want to go through and share with our audience a bio. So Sadie, you are the Director of Operations at Living Water Chiropractic in Boerne, Texas. Is that how you say it?
That's correct.
Okay, I got it. Oh my goodness, that's awesome. I'm so delighted. Sadie, you're a wife to Dennis and a mom to 2 young boys. And then your own family was transformed by chiropractic, as I understand it. And that's what sort of kicked all of this off. And you joined the Living Water team shortly after that. I understand that you're originally from Lubbock, that you love the sun, you love getting out to walk in the sun, that you play sand volleyball. Does that all sound correct?
That is all very true of me. Yes.
Oh, I love that. And so you're working with the care advocate team, leading them there at the office down in Boerne, and you really embody and want to lead your team in the way of creating really incredible patient experiences at the office. And so you want to make sure, and I definitely, this came across, and this is the exact reason why I wanted us to interview you, is that you want everybody to feel really well cared for when they come into practice, whether they are interacting with a doctor or a care advocate. That is something that you really value and that's really important to you. Is that correct?
That's very true. Yes.
I love that. So Sadie, thanks for joining us. We're gonna jump right in, and I would love to really just start with your personal journey. So take me through your personal journey. What led you to becoming a care advocate originally in a PX office?
Yes, of course. This is so exciting. So I was pregnant, and I ended up having 2 very traumatic births that were not the way that I had planned or thought or saw them going. And I knew with my second, so my first ended in an emergency C-section, which, the more you know. Now, of course, I have more education through PX and Perfect Storm and all of that. However, I didn't know that at the time. And so with my second, I knew deep in my heart that I wanted to have a VBAC birth, if possible. And so I knew that I needed chiro care. No one really told me. I just had this deep feeling. And so I actually had been under chiropractic care my entire life. I was a competitive gymnast. My mom was very, she placed a high value on chiropractic care. So I was really familiar with it my entire life. However, I had taken like a hiatus from it when I first got married and then when we moved here. And so I just sought out any chiropractor in the area that was well known. And this was a little bit before doctors, the Bersanis, got going with their practice. And so I was under care elsewhere. However, after, I did have a VBAC and it went well. But then with my son, I just knew, he was precious and smiley and such a blessing, but I had a feeling that something with him was off. And, you just have that kind of mom instinct, as we often talk about. And so I knew deep down that I wanted to seek out chiropractic care for him first. And so that's when I actually found Living Water with my second. And, there was just traditional things that I knew weren't happening with him in the right timeline. And I just really had this deep gut feeling that I needed to seek them out. And that's when I first walked in the doors of Living Water. And in all transparency, it reminds me of your story in ways. I look at the numbers and I'm like, this is not going to, this is not going to work. We're not in a position for that. But I had this deep feeling, and I do tell moms this so many times in the ROF room when I'm presenting financials. It's like, I've seen these numbers. I know how big they can look. However, this is the time commitment, the financial commitment, of your life. I promise you, if you will trust us, we see miracles every single day. And so it's that, and I was on the other end of that. And, the CA at the time, she really encouraged me, that was presenting. She made me feel so excited to take this step for my family, and that it really was going to be a solution. And so that's what I did. And I put it on a credit card, and we paid it off monthly because I really believed in it. And we're not credit card people, but I truly had this deep, deep feeling that it was going to transform our families' lives. Little did I know, here we are over, a year and a half later, and I'm in this position, and I never would have expected it, but it truly is all been divine. And then of course the rest of our family has been transformed. I don't know how far you want me to go into that, but I can go a little deeper.
Yeah, no, I thank you so much for sharing that. God sent you there, we can call it as it is. And, you had that internal knowing, you knew you were meant to be there. Obviously, chiropractic sounds like it had been a pretty formative part of your life for the bulk of your life. And so you were turning back to something that you knew was meant for you, and that you were meant to explore that for your family. And so obviously really excited that chiropractic has you back. And that obviously that Living Water is the central focus of that. And so I love that you're talking about your personal connection to the work, because so often the personal connection to the work is what helps us when the going gets rough. And the going does get rough every once in a while. And sometimes the going getting rough is as simple as a tough day 2 report of findings financial, where you're knee to knee with a family and you're going through a financial, and that financial for that family is a big number. And you have to be willing to dig deep and have that better, deeper conversation and talking with that family and helping to seek to understand, how can we make this work for them? And how does that look to structure the payments? And how can we help this family go all in and say yes to this life-giving, transformative chiropractic care? And so your personal connection to the work, obviously having been on the other side of that care plan and having been on the other side of that desk and on the receiving end, it's provided you with a level of knowing and understanding that I'm sure helps you be more effective in your role from a communication and conversion standpoint, but also from how you lead your team, because you're taking the lessons that you have from the time that you've been there and then the time that you had as a patient, and wrapping that wisdom together to work with your team and help them have that same level of perspective and then that same level of empathy, but also a call to action as well. Because just as much as we understand and empathize with people and what they're going through, we also want to take them by the hand and bring them up to higher ground, right? Because that's what we get to do as care advocates. That's one of the things that I actually love the most. Traditionally in chiropractic, CA stands for chiropractic assistant, and in PX, we flipped that and reversed that a long time ago and changed that to be care advocate. And I love that because it's the perfect pairing of what we get to do. It's that we get to provide a level of care and attention for people, not just clinical care, but, personal care. And then we also get to advocate for them and with them for their highest good and for their best outcome. And so it's so cool that we get to do that every day. So thinking on that, in your role as a care advocate and a leader, I would love to know just a little bit more about your team. Can you tell me about your practice? Tell me about your team. I would love to know the size of your team and, kind of some of those inner workings. So how many docs are there on your team? How many care advocates are on your team? And what does that sort of look like in terms of makeup?
Yes. So we have a unique team dynamic. I will say one thing that I think is relevant is in Boerne, we are an outskirts area of San Antonio. So I think, a lot of people are familiar with the city of San Antonio, Texas, and it's a beautiful, vibrant city, but we are pretty, within driving distance from that. And I think that is important. So the reason I bring that up is a lot of our team actually does drive in from San Antonio. And then of course our patients, they're going to come from all over the region, which we may get into more later. But so as far as our team goes, we're out here in Boerne, but a lot of our team does commute in. And so we are made up of, we had a 5-doc team earlier this year. And then our dearest Dr. Taylor got married and she relocated. So we are down to 4 again, which has been great. It's been a really huge blessing to add docs to our team. We may get into this a little bit more later, but we had a really interesting dynamic because Doctors Rudy and Dr. Ashley, they truly built this practice themselves and pushed it to capacity very quickly. And so we had such unique challenges from that because we were truly just at capacity for so long. So we were continuing to learn, continuing to educate ourselves through PX. However, so many of the things we were learning were so hard for us to implement because we were just at our max capacity, and then a lot of the offices that I would interact with were needing marketing and they were needing new patient calls, and we're busting at the seams with all of these, which I feel bad saying, but it truly is such a blessing. And it's a really unique position to be put in. But it's also very exciting as we poise ourselves for the future and growth. Because we're finally at a point now where we do have spots on the calendar to put patients, we do have a few openings. We are really gradually, you heard it here first, we are really moving towards needing, another doctor already, but it's very exciting to have that capacity to truly take that step back, at least for myself, and be able to focus, okay, let's train, let's get very strategic, let's pivot, because I mentioned this with the doctors last week in a meeting, but over the past year, it has been such exponential growth for our office that I feel personally in my role, that I've been plugging holes and building infrastructure, to be honest, because we've grown so rapidly at such a rapid pace. And when I say that, Jacqui, our team was 2 docs, 3 to 4 CAs, 2 of those full-time, 2 of those part-time. And this time this year, we're sitting at now 4 docs, 10 CAs so it's grown a lot over the past year. And we fluctuated. We may get more into the details of that. We've ebbed and flowed. We were up to 17 total, to 15, we're back up. So, it changes with the season and with the tide, but it's been a huge blessing to be a part of just the building and the infrastructure of that type of team, and really getting down to the nitty-gritty of finding out what type of people fit well in this role and why, and then looking at longevity. There's so many components here that I've really loved the strategy of, but we have a lot of experience and we've made mistakes along the way, but we are better for it. And it's really been a unique opportunity to grow.
Oh, I love that. Yes. And, one of the things that we talk about a lot in PX is we talk about building it big, right? We talk about, the benefits of a multi-doc team. We talk about the benefits of an all-in CA team. And, we really advocate not for DIY. We don't recommend that a doctor become a doctor to act as a CA. We believe doctor time is the most valuable time, and we believe that they should be the best in the world at what they're best in the world at, which is being a doctor. And that as care advocates, it's our opportunity to come alongside them in a support role and being the best in the world at what we are the best in the world at, which is being care advocates. And then when you literally synergize those two things together, between the two two shall meet, just that synergy just makes absolute fireworks and makes things go off. And I think that's what we've seen in your practice and in so many others, is that your team has really exemplified what happens when you align, best in the world and best in class doctors along with best in class care advocates who are so mission and vision aligned that you can't help but build it big, because there's such a high demand and there's so many patients that need what it is that we're doing with this work. And so why would we not want to build it big? Why would we not want to create more access for this life-giving and life transforming chiropractic care that we know and love and hold so dear? So I love that you shared that. For you personally, what do you think it is that you love the most about being a care advocate? What is it about the role that just absolutely lights you up?
Man, that's a hard question. There's so much about my job that I really, truly enjoy. And I do try to start every CA meeting with gratitude. We pray, and I always pray, like, thank you that we have the best job in the world. And I truly mean it. And I believe that the CAs know that I truly mean it, because you can relate to this. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I have a lot of other responsibilities in my life, and a lot of friends that ask me too in the community about my job. And I truly tell them, like, if I am going to work and that is my lot in life right now, I truly could not be more thankful, because I have the best job in the world. And I believe that. And so I think that contagious energy, for the rest of the CAs, really does rub off. But when I think about my favorite part of the role, I think for me, being able to speak on the phone to these moms who truly are at the end of their rope and they have tried everything. I remember sitting on this side of the table and the doctors looking at me and saying, "You are such a great mom. You are doing everything else that you can. You're eliminating all the stressors, all the environmental stressors that you can." And I think as a mom who is working and striving to create, a healthful environment for your family, and just trying to learn and glean as much knowledge as you can to help your children thrive, to hear that from the doctors and say, "Hey, but we all need a little help. This is just the state of the world that we live in, and we're all going to need this support." And I think them empowering me just truly turned something on inside of me that was like, wow, I would love to be on the other end of that. And I would love to empower moms and tell them the same thing. And so I think on these phone calls, and at these new patient calls, and truly being able to just encourage them. And a lot of times too, with our perfect storm calls, telling them, "I am not surprised by anything you're saying. There is a place here for you. We are set up for this. Our office is set up for this." They truly cannot believe it. And even their siblings, even yes, we're ready. Bring them in. Like, we can't wait to meet you. It truly changes lives. And it's so encouraging.
It really does, because they're not getting that anywhere else in the marketplace. I can promise you that. Ooh, honey, they are not getting that anywhere else, because that is not the messaging in the healthcare space. The messaging in the healthcare space is not one of hope. It's not one of expectation. It's not one of, "We got this." It's one of, "We'll see. We don't know. Expect the worst. If something better happens, great." And so the experience that you're talking about, and the connection that you're talking about, and, the care that you're talking about, it's refreshing to them to connect with a person who is ready and excited to provide them with an experience that is the experience they desire to have, and also one that they've been seeking but have not yet found anywhere else. So I love that you shared that. And I would really echo those sentiments as well. For myself as a care advocate, I would say my favorite role, or my favorite part of the role, is the people. And it's two prongs. The patient people, obviously, I just absolutely adore them. And then also for us as leaders, the team people. I really take to heart the fact that I am a steward of the people. I really look at an opportunity to fellowship and guide our team and to mentor them and minister to them, and that they then give that back to our patients. And so always the most important part of the work is the people part, the team people and the patient people. And I love that the most. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. When you look at the practice and you sort of think about your role, how would you describe your role in the office? And then also, how would you specifically define how you impact patient care? So what does that look like for you specifically with how your role comes to life day to day and the impact that you create with regard to patient care?
Well, that's a tricky question. But I would say, as you were even asking that question, I was thinking about a thread, and I like to envision myself as a thread throughout the practice and also the team. I love to be in this supportive role for the docs, partnering with them, for the CAs, partnering with them. What do you need from me this week? How can I train you and help you to feel more comfortable in your role and empower you day to day? Like I truly, and even what you were mentioning about the CAs and life circumstances. I mean, every week, even with the CA team, there's going to be a crisis, a point of prayer. There's always something. And I feel so honored and valued to be in that position to, like you said, to steward that for them, to encourage them through it. And then of course, to join arms and work alongside of them and help them to continue to work through it. But I would say when I think about my role, that's more so what it is. I really, really enjoy still that I am moving away from this a little bit more, but I really enjoy being able to be that first phone call with a new patient calls. I don't get to do all of them. We have a large volume, as I mentioned earlier, but I love to be able to do that when I can. So that way I'm truly hearing getting to be that kind of first impression for the office and communicate effectively our heart for the patients and what they're going to experience here. And then moving along, if there's an opportunity for me a couple days a week to be on the other side, I said, as of the financials and the ROF and go in after that report of findings. That is also truly impactful because then I'm able to walk some of these patients through their journey, which was invaluable. And I was also then able to do some of the testimonial capturing, which then is even more impactful because I get to truly hear, the impact that this office has had on their lives. And so I feel very humbled and honored to be able to be a part of those journeys because it's really being able to see it through to fruition. I'm not only looking at spreadsheets. I'm not only looking at efficiency. I'm not only sneaking in the back and working, but I'm also able to be upfront a couple shifts a week to fill in shifts for CAs when their kids are sick or whatever it is, and able to be in every part of the role. But as you know, that is a challenge. And it's even as I'm implementing and building policies and procedures, it's hard for me to keep track of them and to do them well and to train on them. And so I really enjoy that challenge of being able to have a hand in every part of the practice.
Yes. And I would say that level of experience and that level of exposure is extremely formative because you're going to create policies, procedures, systems, infrastructure that are going to, number one, have a robust amount of information, because a lot of the times the people at the top have all of the power and none of the information, and the people at the bottom have all of the information and none of the power. So when you have an empowered leader who has both authority in a way, if you will, and then also the information, you're going to set up an infrastructure, policies, systems, procedures that are going to support the team, that are going to amplify the incredible work that they're doing. And it's going to be based on fact, based on reality, based on real circumstances. And so it's just going to provide a much more robust experience, not only for your patients, but then also robust experience for your team, which then is is going to feed into retention and overall job satisfaction. It's really important. Like, we want to have these incredible teams and we want to keep them and we want to build them. We don't want to wash, rinse, repeat every 2 years with a whole new CA team. And certainly nobody wants that. So also, I think from a patient confidence standpoint, when you're able to retain team members and you're able to retain really dynamic A players and you're able to keep them engaged and growing throughout the process of being on your team, that speaks a lot of confidence into your patients. And so we need to understand in chiropractic that having heavy turnover on your CA team, not only is it detrimental because it significantly impacts your growth, but it significantly impacts the patients that you're, or the confidence that your patients have in your practice overall, because they're going to be like, geez, why can't these people get it together with being able to keep team members? And so I know that that is something that has helped us a lot. And I'm sure that that is something that is really speaking volumes to your patients, that you are building such a solid team of A players that are so mission and vision aligned. So I love that. What would you say the experience differences are in your PX office versus the experience that somebody would experience in traditional chiropractic? So if you think about Living Water down there in Boerne, what makes the experience at Living Waters unique? Like, what's unique there?
Well, I feel like I'm in a unique position to answer that, since I have been to so many other traditional chiropractic offices through the course of my life. And I think that's why I knew Living Water was so different from the moment I walked through the doors, because I had been to so many other offices. And like I said, I'm already passionate about chiropractic care before I walked through the doors. So, and a lot of our patients that call are, or they've, moved from different states and they've seen other types of offices. And so they're in, the similar position to me in that way. However, whenever I walked in the doors, and when I think of patients coming in, I mean, truly, Jacqui, as I was reading through our wellness, cancellations and retention, like as I was looking at all of that last week, I was reading through some of these additional comments and reading what these patients were saying. And it was so much of it was from the moment I stepped in the door, I felt loved, seen, noticed, cared for, or even from the moment they called the first time, and that is a hard dynamic with our volume because we're so busy. We would love to be able to get back to them. I know on a training, it was talking about 24 hours, and it's been so hard for us to have the manpower and the staffing and the infrastructure with our small space, because that's our biggest confinement now that I didn't mention earlier, is truly the space of our office. We have just outgrown it. So we've gotten very creative with our scheduling and with our hours and with our communication shifts for the docs, et cetera. But I really, truly believe that when that patient walks through the door for the first time, they are greeted by a smile. It is bright in here. There's natural light. There is joy, laughter, a beautiful chaos, as we call it. But they walk through the doors and they know at that moment that they're going to be cared for well. And that's even before they get to the chiropractic piece, which of course it's formative and life-changing. And so I like to think that's what's different about our office. And truly, as I'm in the community interacting with moms every single day on the soccer fields, at school, on boards, I'm able to communicate that to them, that just please give us a chance. If your child is struggling with ADHD, have you considered walking through our doors and giving us a call? And a lot of them haven't, but I know that if we can get them to walk through those doors, that they will see it and they will feel it and they will experience the transformative power of what we have to offer.
Yes. It's palpable in your space and it's palpable with your people. Yes. I love that.
Truly. I mean, if we read through Google reviews, as I often do, and I'm sure you do as well, like to read what people in the community are saying about you, that's a lot of the themes that you'll find, is that I can feel how different Living Water is when I walk through the doors, which is something to be so proud of. And it's a testament to what the Bersanis have built.
Yes, absolutely. And really no better way to affirm what you're doing is working when people are feeling the exact experience that you desire to create. And so just knowing that you're impacting them in that way is a great affirmation. So let's say, because it does happen, right? Obviously not as often as it used to, but what about when you come into contact with parents who are either brand new. They're brand new to chiropractic. They know nothing, right? Or maybe they're skeptical, right? Because I mean, I feel like I've been in chiropractic for 9 years, 10 years as the mom of a patient, 9 years in the industry, just about coming up on my 9-year anniversary. And I feel like patients have never been more educated. They have never been more prepared. They've never been more interested. They've never been more all in before being all in. Like, and that's why it's just so exciting, because it's like conditions were not the same 9 years ago. Conditions were not the same as they are now. So when we talk about like a ground floor Google opportunity, like chiropractic is literally like, I know we already feel and know that it's going off, but I mean, when we look at utilization and optimization in the marketplace for chiropractic over the next 10 years, I think it's going to absolutely blow our minds what's about to happen here. But with that, you know, there are some patients that really just don't know anything about chiropractic yet, or people that maybe have been burned in a different spot in chiropractic. Maybe they sought help for their child with a different practitioner and they didn't get a robust care plan, and so they didn't get results. So what are some of your favorite ways from a patient education and connection standpoint to work with and support parents and families who are either totally green or maybe they're skeptical, maybe they've had a previous negative experience? So what does that look like for the team at Living Water, and how you help to move those patients from A to B?
So I agree with you. I believe that the people calling into our office have never been more educated than they are now, which is huge. However, when we get that phone call, and the thing that's hard is you can truly hear it in their voice, you know, that they have lost hope and they're looking for answers, you know, and so many times I find myself at the end of the call saying like, thank you for taking that first step towards hope, healing, and answers. And then they just can't believe it, because it's, like you said, so opposite of what they're really usually hearing on the phone when they call into a healthcare space. And so what I tell the team is, number one, to implement, you know, if you were asking me that, if somebody on my team was asking me that question, like, what do I do if a mom calls and they're very skeptical? This is what I would say to them. Number one, we're going to push them to come to our next perfect storm. We want them to be there, get that education. There's something about being in that room those evenings and hearing and seeing and feeling. And I still get goosebumps every time I hear the presentation. And now I'm just, you know, usually like setting up the food and helping get ready, and then maybe slipping out the door. But just that true, education piece, hearing it firsthand, start to finish, of how it can really impact us from birth through adulthood, I think is the number one most important thing. And there's something applicable for everybody in that presentation. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, you know, we push them to a lot of the PX resources that are available. But as I was mentioning, we've been at capacity for so long, we haven't felt like we've really been able to find our own voice and to educate our patients. And now that's finally something that in our, you know, marketing plan over the next quarters that we've built in, is to implement our own blog and really try to, with the newsletter, with just these next steps of patient education.
Yes.
But I would say for now, we're really pushing to perfect storm. We're really also then educating on the phone, Jacqui. Like, we're answering questions in that very first phone call and really trying to convey to them that this can be an option for their family and that we're happy to provide additional resources. And then just practically, you know, for the offices out there, just having a list of articles ready to send on relevant topics for CAs, just to make it really easy, cut and dry. Like, hey, if there is a mom experiencing this, shoot them this link after the call. Follow up with a text saying, it was so good speaking with you. Here's an article. Here's more information. Give it, give it a read and then get back with us. All of that. And then of course, having these steps, we will follow up with you in this amount of days, in this amount of time. And then really just setting alerts with our EHR, that we can talk about this too, but we did switch and it was a huge undertaking last April. But we have really, truly tried to immerse ourselves in the optimization of that to set alerts for every CA, no matter who's at the front desk, who's not at the front desk, who's on shift, who's out.
Yes.
The office is going to flow and function the same way because we have built such a robust alert system. And so really the first step is set an alert, follow up with that lead, follow up with that mom, send this article, those types of things. So that's practically how we're implementing the education piece. for those
Yes.
skeptical moms.
I love that. And what you just said, Sadie, is so important because from a follow-up standpoint and a patient education standpoint, it is so important for us to not overhype one particular interaction and think that that's the end all be all. Now, is a robust new patient phone call experience important? Absolutely. It's a fundamental part of what initiates and supports an overall positive patient experience, but it's one piece. So having a guide, which we have guides within PX, people can build their own guides off of, using ours as a jumping off point. But how we can support our teams in being successful with patient education is by taking the guesswork out of it. Because usually unmet expectations are nothing more than uncommunicated expectations, right? So when we communicate the expectations to our team about what a great, robust follow-up process looks like and what proper resources look like, having a guide that gives examples of what to say, when to say it, what to send, how to know what to send, and having that be really plug and play for people is so important. Then you combine that with the human elements, which is the fact that you have notes that went through what the pain points are for that child, what they're experiencing, what the family dynamics are, what stood out in the conversation that was important to the parent or wasn't important to the parent. What can you do as a team to create a better patient experience? You put those human elements together with an infrastructure that provides resources, and then all of a sudden it looks like we're having this really robust patient education and patient experience overall. And it's a lot more ease. There's a lot more flow, and it doesn't have this sort of grit and this tension that it used to have actually in chiropractic, because now we've got a lot of resources and we've got a lot of know-how. We don't have any uncommunicated expectations. We have very clearly communicated expectations, but also we have access to resources and we have access to support. So that's so important. Just as much as we want to do that for our patients, we need to do it for our team too. And so that's a real opportunity for us in chiropractic, I think, to look at, say, okay, well, if we feel like our CAs are not being successful, why aren't they being successful? Like, they want to be successful. They're demonstrating a desire to be successful. They're demonstrating the character and the values to be successful. So where's the gap here? And sometimes the gap is us as leaders, that we haven't provided the access or the support or the resources to help them be successful. So I love that you said that. When it comes to handling tough conversations, because they do come up, what are your strategies to handle tough conversations, like being able to sort of talk tick, right? As a CA, to be able to help patients understand more about chiropractic care, or even, and this is probably like my top favorite in terms of like objections, care plans, understanding why we care plan. Now, I know that you guys have certainly not had a volume problem, and you've, even struggled to get new patients in because you've been booked out very far with such a high demand and such an incredible team down there. The demand for your work is very high. But some parents, I'm sure, do still have some reluctance to care plans. So when it comes to that, how do you yourself prepare for those conversations? And then also, what is your favorite way? So maybe your favorite training strategy or your favorite leadership strategy to, number one, you be prepared. And then number two, you prepare your team for those tough conversations as they come up. Because I will sell you this, something that I've found as a leader is being a leader on this team for 9 years. Our team would always rather me have a tough conversation for them.
Yeah.
Than for them to have the tough conversations themselves. And that's been such a huge growth opportunity for us. And I don't fault them for it. Like, I would always love to have, Miss Christina have a tough conversation for me rather than me be the one to have it. But that's not the way it is. And so, from a growth standpoint in our practices, we know that tough conversations are going to come up at any time. And so we need to make sure our team is prepared to have one, with empathy and with kindness, but also with a call to action to help parents understand, yeah, we welcome and invite your questions about chiropractic, about subluxation, about care plans, whatever the topic may be. But also we want to make sure that everybody is prepared to have that at any time. So I guess bringing that question together more succinctly, how do you feel you prepare yourself the best for tough conversations of any kind? It could even be tough team conversations, right, which those happen too. And then how do you best prepare your team for that?
No, that's great. I would love to answer both parts of that, as far as for tough conversations on the phone with patients and then also team, because I feel like both are pretty relevant to the audience. So first off, I remind myself that when there's a tough conversation that needs to be had with a patient, so how that would look like in our day-to-day, as you said, sometimes there are conversations where people call and request me. I need Sadie to give me a call back. That's inevitable. It's going to happen. Yeah. Those are tough. And I have to remind myself that that's part of the job and those are going to happen. So to answer the first part of your question, the way that I prepare myself for that is I continually immerse myself in the trainings. I really try to continue to keep up to date on the PX trainings and the documents. And, it's almost like when you go to the scriptures, you find the perfect scripture at that time and when you need it, and it's living and active. And I feel the same way with the PX trainings. There's always an applicable training to what we're needing. And so my biggest piece of advice for offices is don't sleep on the training. Make sure that your team is truly looking into the training library whenever you're at an impasse, whenever you have an opportunity arise that you need help on. And so the way that looks for me is I remind myself that we have chosen to differentiate ourselves in the chiropractic space, being a PX office, and truly the care planning alone, the commitment to the care planning, to the finances, to the time, the driving. A lot of our patients, as I mentioned earlier, they drive. And so I remind myself constantly that we have made this distinction because we believe in it. And so we have bought in financially and with our time, we take the time to do the trainings, to be closed Tuesday mornings. It's a very large commitment all the way around. And it has only served us so well. And we're so thankful for it, for the infrastructure of the trainings that's in place that you guys have built. However, for me, remembering that there are other offices out there doing the same thing, and that we are truly believing so much in what we're delivering to these patients, because we're 100% behind it. So what I tell my team when they call, and the mom, I could share a million examples, but a mom last week with a 60, well, how can I break that down? How can I do less? The moms have these questions, and reminding the team members, we never go less than the number of visits. Our doctors have, based on your unique set of scans, that is, going to be the gold standard for your family member. However, we can work with you financially. And I do tell them that. I give them the liberty to, if there's something they have a question on, they can come to me, and we do work on the financial side of things to make it make sense for both parties. However, they have to have that in the back of their mind that truly we're never going to back down on the care planning, because that's how we see the miracles. And I truly do say that to families. And I say that to my team, they have to stick to the care plan, the number of visits, and then they also have to stick to the frequency to see the miracles. And so I think truly going back to that all the time and just telling the team, that's the answer, that there's no other excuse. There's always going to be an extenuating circumstance or a schedule that is absolutely hectic. And, Jacqui, at the unique point that we're at with our practice and the growth that has happened, we're able to sit in those shoes and say in our team meetings and our doc meeting, all of the above, we're able to say, if they are not committed, truly, you can tell on that initial call, you can tell when they come in for the new patient exam, there's this whole patient journey when we speak about the patient roadmap. However, when they get to the point where they're sitting down with the docs, they have an amazing ROF, and then we come in and we sit down with them, you can tell if they are truly in the back of their mind, if they're going to commit to the frequency, or if they're well, I love everything we've seen and heard, but we're probably just going to come once a week. We have a choice in that moment to say, and I have with patients, we have an example a few months ago, we had precious mother and son that they both really needed care for different reasons. And this was in October. I was actually just looking at numbers and I realized that they were new patients in October. They did not begin care till January, because she sat across from us at that table and said, oh, we have this large trip, we have these therapies, we have, all of the above. And I looked at her and said, we believe, we know the things you're doing is important. I know you're doing the best for your family. You are a great fit for this office, but if you and your son are going to be coming daily and or 3 times a week, I really want you to be able to see these miracles. And that I believe are possible for your family. So let's just consider pushing the care and starting in January, when you can fully commit, when we can schedule your ideal schedule. And so there's opportunities like that for my team to make those decisions. And I believe they do. I think it takes time, of course, for CAs, to feel confident enough to offer things like that. But that's where we're at. I mean, that's the biggest piece of training that I would give to them, is just, you can truly tell them that we have to stick to the frequency, because that's when we see the miracles. And
yeah, well, you're leading with such certainty there. You have such certainty that you are so all in on the miracles for the patient that you are not going to back down or dilute your care or dilute your recommendation. You're going to absolutely be flexible on the things that can be flexible by orienting payments and that kind of thing. But also what I love about that is what that communicates to the patient, which is that you are so committed and all in on their outcome that do less is get less. And we're not doing that. We're doing, you know what I mean? And I feel quite the same really with patients, when obviously we always feel disappointed if patients don't start care. But what I feel really excited about is when patients don't start care, but then they come back in a couple of years and they are then ready at that point, or 6 months. I mean, we've had patients that have come back multiple times and then finally started when they came back. And it's because ultimately at that point, when they came back and they were ready, the pain of change became less than the pain of staying the same. And you could say it the opposite way too. You could say the pain of staying the same became greater than the pain of change, whatever way you want to look at it. But the point is that something had to change, and now the patient is ready. And so we're going to swim towards people that are swimming towards us. And so it's not about not wanting to do less. It's about when you do less, you get less. And you're coming into our realm because you know that we have a level of expertise and provide a level of value and a level of experience that you yearn for and you want to have. And so we want to provide that to you. And so that means that looks like certainty, and that looks like hard conversations. And sometimes it looks like telling a family, hey, we're so committed and all in on this that we're going to wait until January to get you started when all that is over. And I think that is so helpful. And then also for you as a leader, you leading in that way provides such clarity for your team to know exactly what your office's policies are, exactly what we do and what we don't do here. And it communicates, I'm sure, such a level of confidence to them of like, hey, if they're in a moment and they're having a conversation and they get a question like that, one of the things that we can do as leaders to properly steward and, shepherd our, however you want to say it, our teams the best is to teach them how we think. If we teach them how we think and we help them to understand how we make decisions, then we prepare them to make those decisions in the moment when their time comes.
Yeah.
And so what better way for me as a leader to be able to equip my team and then teach them how I think and to teach them how I make decisions in alignment with our mission, vision, culture, and values and who we say we are, so that if they get a question, then they feel empowered to be able to answer that question. And number one, they don't have to get me. And number two, if they get me, I'm not going to give a different answer than the one they just gave. Right. And then how empowered and aligned do we feel together? So I just love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's so awesome. Now let's jump into systems and efficiency, because I would love to do a little day in the life moment here, if you will. So as director of operations, walk me through a little typical day. What does a typical day in the life as director of ops for Sadie Smith look like at Living Water? What is a typical day like for you down there at the practice?
So, like I said, I love my job. I believe it's the best job in the world. I'm truly thankful to be in this role. But what happens is, for me, like you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, is I have 2 young boys, so that's the trenches for me, waking up early with them, prepping food for tiny humans, which I think also gives me such a unique perspective as I walk through these doors, because I'm truly like, I'm thinking of them. I'm thinking of my husband, he's trying to build a business right now. So it's like, there's so many things going on in our lives. And that's something that I also share with the team is like, we all have so much life going on, but when we walk through these doors, we are not that we're leaving it behind. We do have implementations. Like, we got a phone dock charging station for everybody to leave their phones there, because, there's just little things like that where we have to implement, where it's like, not that it was a problem, but that we truly want everyone to know that if they walked in our back office, the priority is that we're working, we're discussing, we're not sitting back there on our phone. So there are practical things like that we implement day to day. However, when we walk through the doors and when I come in, I try my hardest to be here when the CAs get here. I don't want to be waltzing in late. I try to be here when they come. I want to turn on the coffee maker, fill the Berkey, do the exact same things the rest of the CAs are doing, because that's my leadership style. However, there are times when I'm not able to, because I have to do a late drop off or my husband's out of town. So I always communicate with the team, hey, I will be there before the pre-shift meeting, but this is why I'm not there when the doors open or opening the doors. A lot of times I am the first one here, especially on a Friday. If we're opening at 7, I might be the first one here. I do live the closest as the CA team. So my day, as I walk through the door, and essentially, we get everything going and prepped in the office. We have a robust office checklist for the morning, for the mid shift, for the midday, and then for the evening. And so we follow that. And then we get ready for a pre-shift meeting with the docs. So when the docs come in, I like the CAs to be ready, notebook in hand, pens, sitting at the desk. We're ready. We have the music on, the iPads ready for check-in for the patients. So that way, if someone walks in the door when we're at our meeting, we're ready to go. However, what we realized a few weeks ago was we didn't want that meeting to push into, like, say a new patient was showing up. We didn't want them to walk in and there's no one manning the front desk. So lately we've implemented, like, if somebody sneaks out, they're going to walk out and they're going to be ready at the front desk to greet patients when they come in if we're not quite done. So we try to handle all of the pertinent information for docs and CAs at the beginning, and then just the docs are finishing up things at the end of that meeting, and then they're coming out and we're starting. People are checking in, we're ready to go. So then once that happens, if I mentioned earlier, I do fill in a lot of times for the CAs. I want them to know, like, if something happens, or one of our CAs, her husband is a basketball coach, and they made it to state. Okay. No one was really able to cover that shift. I told her, like, we want you, we want this for you. Like, in the CA meeting, we said, how can we work this? Even if someone's covering the first half of the shift, how can we work this where our dearest Sylvia can go to the state game? And so a lot of my day is that I'm either up front, I'm a CA, I'm presenting financials, I'm in the back doing new patient calls, trying to get back to new patients, working on efficiency. I'm trying to catch things like, not that I'm here trying to catch things that are happening that are wrong, but I'm trying to always increase the efficiency and just see, like, hey, how can we improve? How can we grow? How could we have said that better? And it's not ever going to be in that moment, because, we try to stick to the policy of, like, I'm not going to criticize something that can't be changed in the next few minutes. If it's a quick change and we can do it on the fly, we're going to do it. But even as a leadership team, we've decided we're not going to try to throw things out at those morning meetings that are like big policy changes. We're really going to save those for the team meeting. So we have the continuity, everybody's hearing it at the same time, or the CA meeting, of course, if it's at the CA level and it's, I have a list of 10 to 15 a week that I'm rolling out at the CA meeting that are just things like, hey, let's remember to do this. I've noticed this is happening, and the whole leadership team finds those things throughout the week, and then we roll those out. So essentially it's I'm in the back and, doing those types of things, or I'm working on the back end. I'm, trying to still build out Asana. That's something that we've really, really tried to implement and, utilize, but we are very robust in Slack. So a lot of the day I'm in Slack, even when I'm not here in the office. That's a large part of my day, answering questions. I just want the CAs to know that I'm available to answer questions, even if I'm not physically here. I never want them to feel like they're unprepared. And when we have new team members, as that's inevitable. I mean, there's going to be times when they have questions, and I don't want them to feel unprepared in that time. So that's my typical day. If you have any other questions, a lot of times I'll sneak out to the trail. We have a beautiful walking trail behind our office. And so I'll try to sneak out there for a quick little walk or eat outside, but then I'm right back at it till I pick my kids up.
I love that. I love that. And that sounds like a very typical day in the life for an ops person, and especially one who is leading from the front with really, doing the work with the team and, bringing those miracles to life. And then, and I love you talking about, staying connected and really being that person that is showing up for your team as their leader. That's so important. So let's talk about it, because I know y'all are busy now. I know you see a high patient volume. You are booked and busy, and we love that. So what are some of the things that your team does to keep the energy up, right? Like, you need to have your energy up. You need to have your mind right. You need to be in the right mental space to be able to provide these really incredible experiences for patients when they come in. So is there anything, like any quirky, fun thing that your team does? Is there any, ritual or routine, or, because I know every office kind of has their thing that they do. So do you guys have something that you do to keep your energy up?
Jacqui, this is so funny you asked this, because I cheered in college. So I have been advocating for a team cheer. Like,
yeah.
And of course, everybody's rolling their eyes at me, but the biggest thing we do, of course, when we're all together in those meetings is pray. And we always, I would say, to amp up the team the most, the number one thing we do is we spend a large part of our team meeting every single month. And when I'm saying large, it's over an hour on patient wins, because that is the heart of what we're doing and why. And then the next step to that is I want everybody on the team, whether they're at the front desk or not, because we have, marketing support that's not in office every day. And people CAs that shift around their schedule, like not everybody's seeing the same patients in the practice. When you have a large one, like not everybody knows every family. And so we take a large part of our team meeting to share these wins, to talk about their cases and the progress. And that is like light a fire under us. We are tearing up. We're so excited. We have a prayer request Slack channel that we keep that going. We have a patient win Slack channel, a testimonial Slack channel. Like, there's so many opportunities for us to be hyping up our team members and reminding them why we do what we do every day. But then on the other side of that, we really place a high value on our patient appreciation parties. And so we throw these large bashes 1 to 2 times a year where we don't spare expense, because we really want it to be such a blessing to the community, and also to our team. I mean, they are so fun. We have them typically on Friday afternoons. We have an organic mold-free coffee truck. We have this amazing vendor that has come from Hawaii and moved to San Antonio, and he makes all fresh fruit shaved ice. Okay. We love promoting what he does. I mean, if there's other vendors in the community that align with what we do, like, we want them to be our community partner. And we really, really try to bless them in that way by having them here regularly, by getting them in front of our large patient base. And so a lot of times too, Jacqui, we will send those text messages out to our inactive patient base. So to bring them back in, to keep a touch point with them. And a few months ago, when we were getting ready for, I believe it was our summer bash or something in April or May, I went through the inactive patient list, and it was almost 2,000 people. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get clearance on this, but we're going to text these inactive patients, and we're going to invite them to join us for this bash, to remind them what it's like to be here, to see the family, and I feel like that's super important, because that's a whole nother, when you talk about marketing, it's a whole nother population of people that do have education of what we do, and they have stopped for one reason or another, but they're going to feel the pain. Their kids, unfortunately, going to get sick again. They're going to have a conversation with someone who's experiencing a miracle here at that time. And they're like, why did we stop wellness care? So there's always an opportunity. So I would say those really, really get our staff hyped up as well. The perfect form we require, but I mean, it's not a requirement because people always sign up, but we want our team to work the perfect storm events. That's super important to keeping them educated, fired up, excited. And then we do one-offs, like we have a beautiful team dinner, or someone's getting married, or, if someone's moving or, graduating or some type of achievement, we try to have a big team dinner, or, and then, like I said, the docs are so generous and being able to bring the team together, or we go to team in leadership. I mean, that was a huge team building opportunity for us to come as a team, to learn to, I mean, even in the car, you're just brainstorming, spitballing, like it's so excited. We've done the immersion. Like that was super, super, I would say advantageous for us in really educating us, but also firing us up. Like when we come to your office and see what at PwC, like sometimes I wake up and I'm like, those girls at the front desk are doing what we're doing today. I mean, truly, like just knowing that we're all linking arms doing the same thing every day, it's really, really empowering and impactful. And so I try to remind our team of that as well. And then of course, you know, we've shadowed other offices in Austin or in the area, but then people will come to shadow us. So there's all these opportunities for us to remind ourselves why we're doing what we're doing, but to also keep our teams excited. I mean, when I say little things, but big things like Christmas, you know, making that really important for our team and giving, you know, great gifts and just really trying to bless the team, not only financially, but also just to let them know like they're loved and appreciated, just like we do with our patients. And I think that's so important. And like I said, the Bersanis have started with that vision. They have really handed it down to me. And I am, you know, we're all able as a leadership team to truly bless the patients, but also to bless the team in the office. And I feel that everyone sees and feels that. But whenever I sat down with them in my interview, I will never forget that they were like, we want to crush it, you know, and we want our team, you know, we want the community to feel like so impacted by Living Water and what we do, but we want you to as well. Like we want your family to thrive. We want your finances to thrive. Like they told me that in that interview. And I feel like that really lit a fire under me personally. And I'm able to then turn around and lead in that way with the CA team and tell them that. Now I have, after this call, Jacqui, 2 interviews for additional CAs to bring on. And that's something that I will communicate to them on the call is that's the heart behind what we do and how we lead our team. And I want people to feel that from the first day. But there have been bumps along the road. I mean, we have made mistakes with team members. We've had struggles with team members. You know, you and I have had conversations about ways to have these hard conversations with teams. So I don't want offices thinking, oh, it's all sunshine and roses. Like, especially when you start getting a large number of team members, it is very challenging, but we have done our best to really empower, bless, and encourage them along the way.
Yeah. And it's because you're staying connected to the most important things. Like I wrote down notes based on what you just said. Like you said, you know, gratitude and celebrations and patient appreciation and, you know, wild generosity with your team and, you know, praising your team and wanting nothing more than for them to have the best life possible, are all really important things to you. And I think that's the reason why you're getting the results that you're getting. And I know it's why. I mean, you can't be in gratitude, be celebrating, be appreciating your patients, you know, be celebrating your team, wanting your team to win at life and not produce results that are reflective of that. And so you guys are producing results that are reflective of that. And I love that. And that's actually something that Dr. Tony speaks about very often. And it's a deeply, deeply held belief, not only for him, but for our entire team. And if I had to actually think of one specific thing that would be the most important thing to Dr. Tony and to PX and to what we teach, it would be gratitude. Loyalty is a big one too, but it would be gratitude, just being in gratitude, being aware of the words that we use, being aware of the energy that we have around the things that we do. And, you know, instead of saying have to, say get to. I mean, we asked for this. We asked for this responsibility. We asked for this opportunity. We've got it. We are in a position of providing life-saving, life-giving care for our patients who have a high need, and every single one of them is special. And so we have a huge responsibility then to provide them with obviously a high level of care, but also a great experience from the patient standpoint and just a great human experience. Like we want to be good humans and we want to work with good humans and we want to serve other humans. I know that might sound overly simplistic, but it's actually not. And yes, you know, this is a business, but it gets to be fun. And, for us, we're very kingdom driven, and that's going to be our frame of reference that we're going to speak to. And so part of that is being good stewards of our patients and shepherds of our patients, our team, all of that. So I love the central focus being patient wins, celebrations, patient appreciation, team appreciation, just awesome fundamentals there. So let's talk a little bit as we wrap here about what advice you would give to chiropractors, right? Because there's going to be mostly chiropractors, some CAs listening to this podcast today. And so when we're thinking about them, what advice would you share with a chiropractor who wants to bring on their first CA and we can break this into two questions. What advice would you give to offices who are wanting to grow their CA team? And I'm going to give an answer first, and then I would like to have you go. And so my suggestion on chiropractors who are considering bringing on their first CA is do not wait. If you have even had an inkling of a thought that you need to hire, you are past the point of hiring. So I would suggest to get on that right away. I think very often from an economical standpoint, chiropractors think that they can or should DIY office systems. And while you can do that, I just have this very deeply held belief that you're a doctor. And that's what you're created to be best in the world at. And so while you can maintain your own EHR and you can really facilitate the entire infrastructure of your practice, what I actually feel like is how much bigger and deeper could your impact look and go if you had a CA to work with you alongside you to do those things? How much faster and how much deeper and bigger could you go doing those things if you had a CA? And instead of looking at hiring or having a CA on your team as an expense, looking at it as an investment, because especially from a growth standpoint, waiting too long to hire a CA, what's going to happen is by the time that you do then hire that CA, you're going to actually need to slow down to speed up, because you're going to have to train and onboard that CA and get them ready. And then you're going to be anywhere from 90 to 180 days behind where you could have been if you had just hired from jump. So I would say hire early. And then wanting to add, I really feel that you're an incredible example, Sadie, of what happens when we hire an on-fire CA and we just straight up get out of their way. I think the Bersanis have shown that they have really empowered you and they have really provided you with an opportunity. And what I heard a lot of today, which I know that this is strategic and it's for a reason, is that you truly are the leader of the CA team. Now, obviously, Doctors Bersani and the rest of your docs, like you guys have an incredible leadership team. You have an incredible team, period. But what I love about your example for your team is that everything that you've said today is talking about educating, uplifting, and empowering your team and really leading them. So with that sort of statement in mind, if somebody is looking to either bring on their first CA or they are wanting to grow their CA team, what would your best suggestions be?
Oh man. Well, I loved your answers, Jacqui. And that was so helpful too, as I collected thoughts and thought about what I would say in response to it. The number one thing is, if they're going to hire a first CA, it's when I think of the doc team that we have, and I think about docs out there, feeling isolated, and, maybe there's not a PX doc in the area, or there's no one to model their practice after, or however they feel, if they're just a very small office or they're fresh out of school. I would say investment is the number one key. So when as you mentioned, yes, we talk a lot in our job about feelings, emotions, heart, drive, doing the hard thing, but also ROI, KPIs. So we have to look at these things as key indicators of a successful business. So I always feel this tension in my role of love, heart, emotions, team, and then also that pull of, okay, growth strategy, so I'm constantly pulled in both directions, which I know you are as well. And that's truly where you live, and you're incredible at that. But I would say that to a doc that's thinking about making an investment, it's even like you have to do the insight scan, like that's going to be a huge investment up front. Okay. Your CA is going to be a huge investment, your space or aesthetic or, mark branding, like finding your own voice, your own tone, that's something you alluded to at the beginning, but we truly have a team of people. Yes, we love the PX content. It is incredible. It's invaluable. I would recommend every office make the investment to be at that level, especially PX Plus. If you really don't have the infrastructure, like every office needs to be investing in that monthly. However, we try to turn it into our own voice. Like we want it to be authentic to our patients we want people to read the content because a lot of our patients are educating with Dr. Tony. They're following, PX. They're seeing other people in the space, well-rooted. A lot of our patients follow well-rooted, which is, so there's a lot of like content, once you get in this space, you'll see that there's a lot of overlap. So that's why I think it's really important for a team or a new office or even an office that's just looking to grow, to find their voice, their brand, their own messaging, to then tailor it so that way it feels authentic for themselves. But then as you grow a team, Jacqui, after, as I mentioned, we've had a lot of highs and lows with our teams this past year, and change, and we have had some turnover. And when I think about the messaging to the general public about adding new team members, it can really feel like you said, that revolving door when you're adding so rapidly.
Yes.
And our office a year and a half ago was the same person answering the phone, the same person, not the same one, but like you would have one person doing the new patient calls, one person doing the ROFs. And so that was a huge, huge benefit to us. So what I would say to these small offices is when you find the right people for those roles and they are thriving, that I believe is the building blocks of how this office has grown so fast, and also in such a strong trajectory, because those people were amazing hires, and the Bersanis knew they really sought out people that were on board. And that is the most important piece of advice I can find after having, maybe 20 or so CAs that I've worked with over the past year and a half. And so I can say, one of the docs and I were just talking about that last week. Like you can't train that. You have to look for that in a CA. So you need someone that is truly willing, able. And I remember myself back and when I started my career and after I graduated with my master's degree, I remember going into the job market, and I remember just feeling like I'm inadequate. I can't do anything. I have all the book smarts, but how do I apply that? And I remember having this attitude, and I walked into my interviews, and a lot of them, are board interviews now with like 10 or 12 people in the room and just you. And I remember boldly walking in there and saying, I don't know exactly what you do. I don't know your processes. I don't know that, but I can learn. So as long as you have the training and infrastructure in place, I will learn whatever you have to teach me, and I will work hard, but I need the training and I want professional development. I need to be, not that I'm like having to travel to all these conferences, but I asked for that up front because I really believe that's important. And it was perfect when I came into this role because that's exactly what you guys offer through PX. And I think as someone hiring their CAs, it's a huge investment. It's a huge step, but the training and infrastructure is there. If a doc could just say, hey, go through the CA momentum course, go through the scanner training, like that it's all there. So if they do that and they're already bought in on board and believing in the power of chiropractic, you can't lose. The last thing I was going to mention is just we use additional tools now that our team is larger. And I know that you guys do too, is Working Genius. So for us, it's like when us as a leadership team, coming back from Brick Builders, our docs are like, okay, we have to take this to the next level. We're building out our org chart as we grow. So we took the Working Genius test. Okay. It's so incredible to see these docs' strengths and growth and leadership. But then also for us, those that aren't doctors, like when I think of my role, what ways can I alleviate their plate so they can do, like you said, what they're good at? And for me, it's galvanizing, it's encouraging. But for the docs, it's going to be the wonder that, the growth. So it's just so fascinating to see how truly a team can take off whenever you're not only staying in your lane, but you're just empowering people to do what they're good at. And like,
yes.
And it's invaluable. That's all I can say.
I love that. So what were your two geniuses? Galvanizing and what else?
Encouraging.
Okay. Awesome.
Great. GE. So encourage with encourage.
Yeah. So I'm I'm discernment and
Okay.
encouragement or
Yes.
enablement. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, enable. That's what I was like, it's
Yes.
yeah, enable. That's
Yeah.
what it is. When
I lo-
the docs were like, oh yeah, they were just, that's what I was shocked. I was thinking
really?
of myself and these just, visualize yourself in a different way. And they were like, no, that's exactly, and so it was
Yeah.
just really cool to see how that's really helped us along the way as a team.
I love that. And that is so important. And you said something earlier that really resonated and I wanted to circle back to it. So you were talking about the emotionally and like interpersonally derived aspects
Mm-hmm.
of the role. But then you were also talking about KPIs and systems and strategy. And when you said those things, I absolutely loved that because what you defined there is you defined the polarity of leadership. It's not and or it's both things all of the time. Yes, you are leading people. Yes, there are human aspects to that, and yes, those things are important, right? Also the strategy, the systems, the procedures, all of the key performance indicators, stats, metrics, calculators don't have feelings. All of those things are part of it as well. And that is really the true polarity of leadership. And that's why it's so important to have both a doc and a CAs, you've got to have both roles on the team because then you're able to have balance, right? Because also if we have docs on their own without the power of a CA to come alongside them, there might be a blind spot. You may have a blind spot in your patient procedures. You may have a blind spot in your patient experience. You might have a blind spot in your clinical care, in your processes somewhere that CA can help bring to life. And so everything that you said so succinctly, I just really appreciate it. And I would love, could you take a moment to I really want to make sure that you guys have visibility because I think that what you are doing down there in Boerne and just your whole team and everything that you guys embody is so valuable and so important to chiropractic. So I did hear you say that you do sometimes welcome and invite other offices to come in shadow. So if a team or person was in the greater San Antonio area and wanted to come and experience the awesomeness that is Living Water Chiropractic, who on your team would that they connect with to be able to explore that?
I would say probably me at this point.
Great.
Yeah, just call and ask for me and I can help set that up. It's
Okay.
like I mentioned, we're in such a unique geographic area because we have Houston, Austin, these larger, Texas is so large. But then, New Mexico, Colorado, like we have this good little region of area that we draw from. And so I think for me, when I was thinking back to a year ago when we were going to switch our EHR, I sought out an office, that was a PX office that was utilizing that tool, just as we've done with our immersion with you guys. I mean, I've come there and said, hey, these are the really big things that I would love to learn from you guys on. And so we kind of did the same thing with an office in Austin. And then vice versa. We've had new offices start and come here for CAs to shadow and train. And I think we can always do that better. But if someone is interested in coming and learning, we would love to have them come experience the beautiful chaos that is Living Water. It's so serene here, not only in the location of our office, but also just the team. And like I've mentioned, I mean, so much of what I've said today, and I've alluded to it, but I just want to make sure that I mention it before we close, Jacqui, is that so much of everything we've talked about today, like none of it is me, I have had this opportunity to step into this role and to help the office grow and change. But truly, when I think of Doctors Rudy and Ashley and the vision that they started with and just coming out of school with a fire, and it makes me emotional to think of like how hard they really have worked to build this. And I owe them everything. And I think, just a lot of what I've said today is such a testament to their leadership and how much they've empowered me and trusted me with their team and with their resources to turn this office into what it is today. And it takes every single one of us on the team to do that. And so, I just want to make sure that that's mentioned because they're incredible humans. As you know, having the opportunity to interact with them, but they have worked harder with it than anyone. They work longer than anyone. And I think that trickling down has created such a beautiful opportunity to grow a large team, and for the community to know that they love and are seen and cared for by the Bersanis, and then now our entire doc team, as we brought on the Campbells, who are also incredible doctors and people. So it's been great. It's been an opportunity that I did not know that I would have, and it's been an honor.
Yes. And I completely agree with you. In fact, really sort of serendipitously, I'm thinking back to when we originally launched PX 5 years ago. We're coming up on the 5-year anniversary. And I distinctly remember, talking with Dr. Rudy in the back of the very first event that we held in the practice shortly after the launch of PX, and their level of involvement and their level of commitment and excellence, and just absolutely the caliber of people, the caliber of doctors, of leaders, of clinicians. Literally, they just check every single box. I absolutely think the world of them. PX thinks the world of them. And that is exactly the reason why I wanted to connect with you here in this capacity. So I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's such an important thing to bring up, because when we talk about the possibility of students or startups or established offices that maybe are like, hey, I've heard there's another way. I've heard this thing called PX. I've heard there's this incredible office in Boerne, Texas, and I want to go and visit them. And I want to go learn more about this neurologically focused pediatric chiropractic thing. What better example than the example that you guys are providing down there with the work that you're doing with your beautiful team, led by the Bersanis and everybody there. And it's just a great example. And so I really thank you taking the time with us today to share your wisdom and your feedback on what you guys are doing. And as far as where we go from here, our time has come to an end, but I just want to thank everybody so much for joining us for the Family Practice Podcast. I invite you to subscribe, to like, and to join us next week for a brand new episode. So everyone, have a great rest of your day. We'll see you on the flip side.
Hey, Dr. Tony here, and I wanted to say thank you for listening to the Family Practice Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to the show so you don't miss a thing. Also, if you're looking for more content from us, you can absolutely subscribe to our newsletter, watch exclusive episodes on YouTube, and dive deep into the articles and blogs on our website. All of this is linked in today's show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.